difference in dealing with customers based in US versus customers based in India. A very common joke is that in India, yes could mean no and no could mean yes. Or, as often if you ask any Indian engineer, he'll say yes, yes, yes. And clients in US on the other side of the phone or Zoom call may always be wondering what he's trying to communicate. Whereas clients in US or people who work in US always expect an open, transparent, and direct response. I think this ambiguity that is there in responses while dealing with Indian customers or Indian vendors versus the US customers or US vendors really highlights the cultural difference between the two countries. And in fact, the difference extends beyond the cultures. It is the culture, the beliefs, the norms, and whatnot. So let's look at the reasons behind difference in dealing with these customers based in one part of the world versus the other part of the world. Number one thing is individuality or individualism, as somebody may call it. See, India scores about 48 in the scale of individualism by one survey, whereas America scores 91. What it means is that America, respects individuality, individualism, and rewards it, whereas those things are shunned or looked down upon in countries like India. So that tells you a major cultural difference between the two countries. An Indian consumer, another example could be an Indian consumer spends more on his family, likes to go out with his family. When you come to India, see all these big billboards, you'll always find things being sold to a family. Whereas in countries like US, they are being sold to an individual. Every individual will have his or her own needs, and they will be targeted based on that. Family orientation in India versus more respect for or worship for individualism in countries like America. Other is male dominance. All said and done, despite all the progress countries like India have made, still it's a male dominant country as compared to countries like US. You go to a workplace, you will find majority of the top management folks are male. Of course, in my own experience, I have found India has come a long way, and it is a lot better than countries like Japan, if I may say so. At the risk of offending my friends from Japan, I would like to say that countries like India have done a lot better in terms of reducing male dominance as compared to countries like Japan. But in countries like America, even though, yes, a lot of surveys have shown it's still a male-dominated corporate world, but I think it's a lot better than countries like India. And that does reflect on how they treat women, how they treat diverse cultures within the workplace. Other thing I have found is loyalty. Now, loyalty goes both ways. In fact, I like to say loyalty and subservience. Every time I come to my offices in India, and I'm intrigued by the fact that everybody calls me sir, and they like to follow what I say without questioning. In fact, it's very hard for me to get them to ask me a question in any all hands meeting. It's very, very hard. And I mean, there'll be all hands meeting of 1,000 people, and you're talking for a few minutes, and then you want people to ask you questions, and there are no questions. How can a group of 1,000 people have no questions about the state of the affairs in the company? It always beats me. And I think the roots of that lie in the fact that India is a country which was under rules of Muslims and later on British for a number of years. So I feel that subservient culture has found its hold at every section of the society, and people find it very hard to question authority. And loyalty, as I said, Indian consumer tends to be loyal. The brands that you find being sold in India have been there for ages. Every time I come here, I find that things that I used to buy 30 years ago, before I left for America, those brands are still there, whereas things are more transient in countries like America. Subservience and loyalty. What is that? I think number 4, we call it uncertainty avoidance. Indian consumer and Indian customers tend to be less of risk takers than American counterparts. Risk taking is a major part of American DNA, and it is rewarded at every level. Whereas I think having a stable job, stable life, stable wife, stable car, stable XYZ, everything, stability is one thing that is worshipped in India. So of course that permeates itself into the way what customers expect from you, what customer behaves with you, so all those things. So I think risk taking is something that is very much missing, and Indian customers, Indian clients always expect more stability and certainty as compared to their American counterparts. Other is a long-term orientation. I'm sure a lot of you may have seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians, where they're kind of the mother-in-law, the mother of the boy. She says, well, you Americans may not understand how permanent things are in Asia, right? And I think that's kind of says it all. I think Asian cultures, especially Indian cultures, here there's more of permanence. We have had Tata family owning businesses for hundreds of years, and now there's Ambani family and the Birla family, and for so on and so forth. Companies here stay for generations, wherein if you think about who is going to take over Dell after Michael Dell retires, your guess is as good as mine. But I can tell you one thing for sure, not his son or daughter. Who took over Microsoft after Bill Gates? Not his son or daughter. Who took over Apple? Not any Jobs, anybody with the last name Jobs, right? And I can go on and on. Not even a single company, American company I can remember, where the offsprings have followed the footpaths of their predecessors or their senior elders in the family. Whereas it's a norm in India. You're expected to take over the business of your elders or of your parents. And it happens even in a doctor's practice in the neighborhood. So I think that there's a good and bad side of it. The good side of that is it gives you a long-term orientation. Whenever you build a company, you don't build it that I'm going to build it for 10 years, sell it, or I'm going to build it, go public, and then move on. No. You build it for permanence, you build it with a long-term orientation, which is a good thing. Of course, bad thing is that, the talent is stifled, other people are not able to come forward or get the opportunity of taking over or showing their talent in managing the company, though it is beginning to happen a bit more in India now, but still a long way to go. So I think if you look at all these things that I have shared so far, that will give you a good, feeling for difference in the cultures that Indian consumers, Indian clients versus American counterparts, American consumers and clients. They're thousands of miles apart, not only in distance, but also in culture, norm, belief system, and what they expect from their vendors.